Cancer feels like a modern disease. We blame chemicals, pollution, processed food, and modern lifestyles. So it's easy to assume ancient humans rarely got cancer. But that's not actually true. Evidence of cancer has been found in ancient bones and mummies, which creates a strange question. If cancer has existed for thousands of years, why does it seem so much more common in our world today? The answer isn't one mysterious poison, and it isn't simply because we live longer. Several major changes happened at the same time, and when you put them together, the picture becomes much clearer. But one of the biggest reasons is something almost everyone overlooks: time. Cancer usually doesn't appear because one cell suddenly goes bad. Your cells are constantly dividing, copying DNA, repairing mistakes, removing damaged cells. Most of the time, these systems work remarkably well. But every time cells divide, there is another opportunity for something to go wrong. A copying mistake can happen. DNA can become damaged. A repair system can miss it. Usually that still isn't enough to create a dangerous cancer. Multiple changes often need to accumulate over many years. Think of it like a combination lock. One wrong number doesn't open the lock. But as more changes accumulate, the odds can begin shifting. And this is where age becomes incredibly important. The longer you live, the more time your cells have to accumulate biological damage. Your repair systems can also become less efficient with age. Your immune system changes too. That matters because immune cells can sometimes recognize and remove abnormal cells before they spread. So aging creates something cancer can use very effectively: more time. Now think about human history. For most of our existence, many people died much younger from completely different causes. Infections, injuries, childbirth complications, famine, violence, diseases we can now treat. That doesn't mean everyone in the past died young. Some people certainly reached old age. But far fewer people survived into the oldest age groups where many cancers become more common. Modern medicine changed that dramatically. Clean water reduced deadly infections. Vaccines prevented devastating diseases. Antibiotics made once dangerous infections treatable. Surgery became far safer. Heart disease became more manageable. And millions more people began living long enough to face diseases that often appear later. In a strange way, one reason we see more cancer is that we became better at surviving almost everything else. But there's an important catch. Living longer cannot explain everything, because some cancer patterns have changed in ways that age alone cannot explain. And some cancers are appearing more often in younger adults too. So something else is happening. Actually, several things are happening. Over the last century, the environment around our cells has changed dramatically. What we breathe, what we eat, how much we move, how much body fat we carry, the infections we're exposed to, the substances we encounter, even how much sunlight reaches our skin throughout our lives. Some of these factors can increase cancer risk. Others may influence hormones, inflammation, or cellular damage. And one exposure became especially devastating on a scale ancient humans never experienced: tobacco. It changed the cancer landscape around the world. But tobacco is only one piece of the puzzle, because the modern world didn't create one new cause of cancer. It changed many different conditions at the same time. And once we examine them together, the mystery of why cancer seems everywhere today becomes much more complicated. Tobacco is the clearest example. For most of human history, people weren't inhaling cigarette smoke millions of times across decades. Then cigarettes became mass-produced. Smoking spread around the world. And decades later, lung cancer rates climbed dramatically. This revealed something important. Cancer risk can change when human behavior changes. But different cancers have very different risk factors. There is no single modern lifestyle cancer switch. Instead, different exposures can affect different tissues in different ways. Take ultraviolet radiation. Human beings have always been exposed to sunlight, but patterns of exposure changed. More travel, more intentional tanning, more severe sunburns, and for some people, more cumulative UV damage. Alcohol is another example. When your body processes alcohol, it produces compounds that can damage cells and DNA. The risk generally increases with greater alcohol consumption. Then there are infections. This one surprises many people. Some cancers are linked to viruses and bacteria. HPV can cause several cancers. Hepatitis viruses can increase the risk of liver cancer. Helicobacter pylori can increase the risk of stomach cancer. Ancient humans had infections too. But modern medicine revealed how deeply some infections can influence cancer risk. Then there's excess body fat. Fat tissue isn't simply stored energy under your skin. It's biologically active tissue. It can influence hormones, metabolism, and inflammatory signals. And those changes are associated with higher risks of several types of cancer. Physical inactivity can also be part of this picture. Not because sitting down suddenly creates a tumor. The connection is more complicated. Movement affects body weight, hormones, metabolism, and inflammation. These systems can influence the environment surrounding your cells. Diet matters too. But this is where the internet often goes wrong. There is no single food that simply gives everyone cancer. And there is no magical food that prevents it. Overall patterns matter more. Certain exposures are clearly important. Processed meat, for example, is associated with increased risk of colorectal cancer. But risk is not destiny. Eating something once doesn't mean cancer appears. Cancer usually develops through multiple interacting factors over long periods of time. Genetics can influence risk. Age can influence risk. Infections can influence risk. Lifestyle can influence risk. Environmental exposures can influence risk. And sometimes cancer develops without an obvious preventable cause. That's important to understand. Because explaining cancer risk should never become blaming patients. Someone can do everything right and still develop cancer. Another person can have several major risk factors and never develop it. Risk changes probability. It doesn't predict one person's future with certainty. But across millions of people, those probabilities become visible. And this is where the modern world matters. We created environments where some harmful exposures became widespread. Cigarettes could reach billions. Alcohol became widely available. Many populations became less active. Obesity became more common in many parts of the world. Air pollution exposed large populations to known carcinogenic substances. At the same time, we also created powerful ways to reduce certain cancer risks. Vaccines can prevent infections linked to some cancers. Smoking rates have fallen in many populations. Screening can detect some cancers before symptoms ever appear. And treatments have improved dramatically. So the modern cancer story isn't simply getting worse. It's moving in different directions at the same time. Some cancers have increased. Others have decreased. Some populations face very different risks than others. And even within one country, the picture can change from decade to decade. But there's still one enormous piece missing. Imagine an ancient person developed a tumor deep inside the body. No CT scan, no MRI, no modern pathology, no blood tests, no screening programs. If that person died, would anyone even know cancer was the cause? Probably not. And that brings us to one of the biggest reasons cancer seems so visible today. We started looking for it. And once medicine learned how to search inside the living human body, we began finding things our ancestors could never see. Modern medicine changed the picture completely. Today, doctors can see tumors that once remained completely hidden. We can scan the lungs, examine the colon, image the brain, study suspicious tissue under microscopes, and detect some cancers before they cause obvious symptoms. That changes the numbers. When you look harder for a disease, you often find more of it. This doesn't mean the increase is imaginary. It means diagnosis is part of the explanation too. Imagine two identical towns. In the first town, almost nobody gets tested. In the second town, people receive regular screening and modern diagnostic imaging. Which town will record more cases of cancer? Probably the second one. Not necessarily because its people develop more cancer, but because more hidden cases were actually discovered. And sometimes modern technology finds extremely small cancers that might never have caused problems during someone's lifetime. This is called overdiagnosis. It doesn't mean the cancer isn't real. It means some detected cancers may grow so slowly that they never become dangerous. This makes historical comparisons much harder than they seem. Ancient doctors couldn't perform biopsies. Death certificates didn't exist. Medical records were extremely limited. And soft tissue usually disappears after a person dies. Bones can survive thousands of years. Most organs cannot. So when scientists examine ancient human remains, they're working with an incomplete biological record. Some cancers leave marks on bones. Many others leave nothing that could survive for centuries, which means the absence of ancient evidence isn't evidence that cancer was actually absent. Now put everything together. Ancient humans did get cancer, but fewer people reached the ages where many cancers become increasingly common. Some modern exposures created new patterns of risk. Tobacco became a global phenomenon. Obesity and inactivity increased in many modern populations. Certain environmental exposures changed. At the same time, medicine became dramatically better at finding hidden disease. So why does cancer seem so much more common today? Because several different forces are moving together. More people survive into old age. Some genuine risks have increased. Some risks have decreased. And we detect far more than our ancestors ever could. There is no single villain, no one chemical, no one food, no one modern invention explains the entire story. Cancer isn't one disease either. It's a large group of different diseases, with different causes, different risks, and different patterns. That's why simple explanations can be so misleading. But there is also an important reason for optimism. If some cancer risks can increase over time, some can also decrease. When smoking rates fall, certain cancer rates can follow. Vaccination can prevent infections that cause some cancers. Reducing harmful exposures can lower risk across populations. Maintaining a healthy body weight, staying physically active, and limiting alcohol can also reduce the risk of several cancers. Screening can help detect certain cancers earlier in appropriate groups, and medical treatment continues to improve survival for many types of cancer. None of this can eliminate cancer completely, because some risk comes from aging, inherited genetics, and biological events we cannot fully control. But understanding the real picture changes how we think about it. Cancer is not simply a punishment for modern life, and ancient humans were not magically protected. They lived in a very different world, died from different threats, and had almost no way to discover hidden tumors. We live longer. We face different exposures, and we can look inside the human body with extraordinary precision. That's the strange truth. Cancer feels like a uniquely modern disease, partly because modern life changed some of the risks, but also because modern medicine finally made the invisible visible. So when someone asks, why didn't ancient humans get cancer? The answer is simple. They did. We just became much better at surviving long enough and looking closely enough to see the full picture.